Many of you know, by the evidence you've seen since citizen journalism destroyed the Operation Mockingbird mainstream media, that there is a deep state shadow government plot to overthrow the U.S. government, place puppets in power in foreign governments, and in the end, to nullify the Constitution and turn America into another third world shithole. We have seen this recently by the Soros-funded invasion called Caravans, in which armies of invaders designed to collapse the economy whilst providing the conspirators with illegal votes and easy avenues across the border for drug trafficking and the even more lucrative business of child sex trafficking. For most of you, this revelation is nothing new, nothing you haven't seen or heard on social media 100 times before. But now we have in printed form a manuscript heretofore unheard of and never published, which outlines the plot and traces its roots back as far as May 1st, 1776. Yes, it goes back to before this country's independence from the British royalty satanic pedivores. This 72-page manuscript lays it out in chronological order from the conspiracy's conception to the mid-90s. We can infer the rest from there by recent memory and the QAnon posts. I will read a teaser of it for you here, and then we'll leave you to download and read the rest for yourself. What you will see is a display of the actual manuscript PDF on Screen Recorder. When you obtain the link to download the file, this is what you will also see. Hidden Power: The Destruction of America. This previously unpublished work is called Hidden Power: The Destruction of America and What You Can Do About It. The opening quote on the face page is, "None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free," by Joanne von Goth. This is a 72-page manuscript that we have the rights to publish here. And I am going to leave a link in the description where I will send you in the thank you notice, when you contribute $1 or more via PayPal, where you can download the rest of this document and read it for yourself at your leisure. But I'm going to open it up by reading selective parts of it. This publication constitutes only the communication of information in accordance with the rights of freedom of speech and freedom of the press, as guaranteed by the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. It does not challenge or threaten the authority of any legitimate government, nor advocate non-payment of legitimate taxes. This publication is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to the subject matter covered. It does not necessarily reflect the opinions of its publishers, advertisers, promoters, or distributors. It is sold and distributed only with the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other manner of professional advice. If legal advice or other expert professional assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person or company should be sought. All rights reserved without prejudice. There is good news and there is bad news. The good news is this book has been written. The bad news is it's true. Okay, let's start it off. The foreword and the redacted things are sensitive, so they have been redacted. Dear friend and associate, it is my sincerest hope that once you read this report, you will realize what a powerful tool you now possess. A tool which can not only help you reclaim your life, but also one that can help you secure your future and the future of those whose lives you touch, whether they be your family, your friends, your associates, or your customers who also purchase this information through you. I want you to know before you read any further that we here stand ready to help you in whatever way we can. Together we will succeed. Perhaps we will someday meet in person. I hope so, but I can't be sure. Even if I never get to greet you personally, I still wanted to thank you very much for purchasing this information. Not because you are purchasing it from me directly, Perhaps you are, but you might have instead purchased it from one of my associates. No, I wanted to thank you for purchasing this report because that means perhaps you will be able to give it or sell it or share it with at least one other person, and thus help all of us to reclaim our rights, our freedoms, our privacy, and in other words, to live our lives as we wish, unrestricted by false regulations thrust upon us by tyrants who aspire to become wealthy masters over us, their eternal servants. This report is dedicated to assisting all of us, not only citizens of the United States, but of every country in the world, to increase our personal freedom by realizing we are the masters of our own fate and are given this power by the Creator who made us all. We do not have to depend on other humans to grant us our freedom, our rights, our privacy, and our very dignity. Those things are already ours. We need only to recognize this truth, which is what this report is all about. Now, I'm going to skip these pages here, and I'm going to get to some meat here. Okay? We have lost our country. If you don't know that or won't believe it, you either don't know what's going on or you don't want to. We have lost it to a relatively small gang of immensely powerful totalitarians whose goal is the total subjugation of the American people in a world government. We have lost it because of our own default. The only question worth asking now is, how do we get it back? The beginning. The idea of world domination is not new. All history is filled with dictators and groups of people who tried to conquer and enslave others. Alexander the Great, the Roman Empire, Attila the Hun, the Holy Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, etc. But all of these early attempts to conquer the world were done by individuals or groups working alone and using great speed and brute force to accomplish their goals. The people conquered were very painfully aware of what had happened to them and bitterly hated their enslavers. So in time, they always rose up against their conquerors to overthrow them. As they say, history repeats itself. Until recently. A little over 200 years ago, there began a traceable sequence of events never before seen in all of recorded history. Like a tiny pebble dropped into a pond, causing ripples to spread across the entire surface of the water, this pattern of events began with a very small seed of an idea, which has grown into ever-widening circles. But unlike the pebble's ripples, which slowly lose their force and impact, the circles of influence spawned by this small seed of an idea have grown not only in size, but also in strength and power, until now they are the force and impact behind all the major governments in all the world. This small seed of an idea began with an age-old desire of men to rule the world. But this time there was to be a difference. No more marauding armies, no despotic dictators, no chains or torture, nothing to give the conquered masses any clear idea of who the enemy was, or that an enemy even existed. Just a meticulously planned and subtly implemented plot to enslave the entire planet into a worldwide dictatorship, a new world order, instead of open aggression and invading troops, which are easily recognized and branded as the enemy. The enslavement of all the world's population was to be done secretly, behind closed doors, in clandestine meetings, and not by some lone dictator, but by a closed club of elitists whose goal was and is world domination. Their insidious plan has almost reached its final frightening conclusion, for they hope to have their new world order of global dominance in full control by the year 2000. Well, I guess they fell short of that, huh? About now, you're probably wondering, but what do you mean by no more marauding armies? In the last 200 years, the world has seen more insurrections, revolutions, invasions, and other wars and all the rest of recorded history combined. And you would be right. The difference is that in this most recent period of history, every major military conflict, and most minor ones as well, have been carefully planned, implemented, and orchestrated by this elitist group, whom we shall call the International Banking Conspirators. Your next thought will be very likely, like mine was, an international conspiracy? Give me a break. If one of our own Congress can't even agree on anything, how could people from numerous cultures and backgrounds possibly conspire together to create anything, let alone a one world government? Good point, and one that is counted on by the conspirators. You see, I too firmly believed that there never was and never could be anything so vast and well organized as an international conspiracy of this magnitude. A conspiracy that has gone, for the most part, completely undetected by its victims for so long a time. In school, which is largely controlled by these monsters, as you will soon see, we are taught an accidental version of history. This accidental perspective takes the view that most things just happen in an unplanned, disorganized, chaotic manner. For example, World War I started because Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated. Period. It just happened. The Federal Reserve was created to prevent massive boom-bust cycles in the economy. Period. The boom-bust cycles just happened. The last 6 major military operations of the U.S., Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Somalia, Haiti, and Bosnia, have all been under the authority of the United Nations in the name of international cooperation and global harmony. There was no particular reason for the UN having control. It was just a nice way of doing things. In other words, it just happened. Period. But if you look a little closer, if you dig a little deeper, you might start to ask yourself, who had a motive? Who killed the Archduke? Why did they do it? And who benefited? Or, who or what caused the massive boom-bust cycles in the economy before the Federal Reserve was created, and who benefited from its creation? And more recently, why has the U.S. ceded some of its sovereignty without the consent of the citizens to the United Nations? How much power, rightfully belonging to the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, has been given without the consent of the people to the United Nations? Who benefits by this unauthorized transition of power, and who loses? When you ask these probing questions, the answers all point to the international banking cartel, hereafter referred to as conspirators or international banking conspiracy. You can come to no other conclusion and that there was and is an international conspiracy of monstrous proportions designed to destroy all remaining vestiges of individual freedom and liberty and plunge the entire planet into despotic and demonic dictatorship, far more terrifying than anything the world has ever seen. Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was one of the conspiracy insiders, as we will soon see, said it best: "In politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happened, you can bet it was planned that way." Then why do most of us scoff at the very idea of a conspiracy? We flatly refuse to believe, as I did, that such an insidious and all-encompassing plot could have been so secretly and meticulously woven against us completely without our knowledge. It really is hard to believe the sheer magnitude and intricacy of the web of deceit, fraud, and outright lies that have been carefully woven around us. But the main reason most people refuse to believe that a conspiracy exists is what we all have been brainwashed into believing, that such a thing could never happen. G. Edward Griffin, author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, an in-depth expose of the Federal Reserve, puts it this way: the reason it, a conspiracy, is hard to accept is that we have been conditioned by the conspiracy-controlled media and education system to laugh at conspiracy theories, and few people will risk public ridicule by advocating them. On the other hand, to endorse accidental view is absurd. Almost all of history is an unbroken trail of one conspiracy after another. Conspiracies are the norm, not the exception. Or as author Edward Waite observed, beneath the broad tide of human history, there flow the steady undercurrents of the secret societies, which frequently determine in the depths the changes that take place on the surface. The Illuminati. So you see, the world is governed by a different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. Benjamin Disraeli. The term New World Order was the motto of the secret society of the Illuminati, or the Enlightened Ones, which was formed in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, a Jesuit priest and professor of canon law of the Church, at an Ingolstadt University in Bavaria, a part of southeast Germany near the Czechoslovakian border. He founded the Illuminati largely in retaliation to the order of Pope Clement XIV to annul and extinguish the Jesuits because of their political activism. By the way, the symbol of the Illuminati, adopted from the Freemasons, was a pyramid with an all-seeing eye at the top, the historical symbol of the Egyptian god Osiris, the dark god, prince of the dead. This symbol was intended to signify the few enlightened intelligentsia people at the top in a position of power over and supported by the mass of followers or slaves, which comprised the base of the pyramid. At the bottom of the base appeared the number 1776, which is the year of the founding of the order, and also coincidentally or not, the year of the American Declaration of Independence. Above the pyramid in Latin are the words Annuit Coeptis, which means our enterprise, conspiracy, has been crowned with success. Below the pyramid, also in Latin, are the words Novus Ordo Seclorum, meaning New World Order or Order of Things. As an interesting aside, Adam Weishaupt founded the Order of Illuminati on May 1st, 1776. This is why May 1st has always been the International Red Holiday, honoring the birthday of the movement dedicated to the establishment of a global dictatorship which has been known as the New World Order, after their own motto. I'm sure this symbol is very familiar to you because it appears on the back of every $1 Federal Reserve note. Of course, the next big question is, why is it on our money? To answer that question, let's resume our story. The Illuminati grew quickly, seeking out the cream of the crop in European society, the wealthy and well-educated upper class and intellectuals. Although they were among Europe's finest, they were still below the level of they were still below the level of rulers. They were close to power, but close was not good enough. They truly believed that they were superior to the ruling class, thus more qualified to rule. In other words, they wanted the power for themselves. Convinced that the Illuminati could soon rule the world, they began to work passionately toward that day when they would become members of the new ruling class. The philosophy of the Illuminati was that man was not responsible for his actions, society was, and therefore society should be punished for the acts of criminals. They also believed that only an all-powerful government of superior people, such as themselves, could properly control society and make sure that it was right, according to the way they believed things should be. The secret plan of the Illuminati. To achieve this goal of world domination, the Illuminati established a plan which called for total destruction from within, in other words, by infiltration, not insurrection, of all religion, governments, and other previously existing human institutions. They would accomplish this by abolishing the family as we know it, all religions, all forms of government, all private property and inheritance, patriotism and nationalism, and all other forms of individual and national sovereignty. Out of the chaos, anarchy, suffering, and confusion, the Illuminati would establish their new world order. The work of the Illuminati laid the very foundation for modern spying and espionage techniques. By the nature of their quest, they relied on deceit and concealment as the most effective weapons in their struggle to achieve world domination. Exposure and truth meant death. Weishaupt knew this only too well. In his own words, quote, "The great strength of our order lies in its concealment. Let it never appear in any place on its own name, but always covered by another name and another occupation." End quote. The Order of the Illuminati continued to grow in power and influence, and with an ever-increasing reach into the innermost circles of European governments. Much of the credit for the spread of the Illuminati doctrine is attributed to a single ambitious banker from Frankfurt, Germany, Amschel Moses Bauer. Amschel, who later changed his name to Rothschild, loosely translated to mean Red Shield, started Goldsmith Shop, a fractional reserve bank, and several smuggling operations by 1743 when he was barely more than 20 years old. He began accumulating considerable wealth by lending money to governments. Experiencing firsthand the incredible power that money can wield, Amschel became fascinated with the power for its own sake, and the accumulation of more and more of it. He was an avid student of the secret societies of the day which sought global power: the Rosicrucians, the Red Cross Society, the Freemasons, who are actually credited with originating the Illuminati symbol of the pyramid representing the unfinished work of the Freemasons, topped by the brightly shining all-seeing eye of the Illuminati, meaning the enlightened ones, who would oversee the rest of humanity. In other words, control everyone else in a dictatorial world government, and of course, the Illuminati themselves. In 1773, when Amschel had accumulated sufficient funds through his financial reserve and usury banking practices, he called a secret meeting in his old goldsmith shop with 12 of the most powerful and influential men of the time. The purpose of this meeting was to convince the attendees to pool their resources and, with the help of his plan, gain total control of the resources of the world. The plan Amschel laid out consisted of several steps, including: law is force in disguise, right lies in force, might makes right, the right to rule lies in force. Political freedom is an idea, not a fact. In order to usurp political power, all that is necessary is to preach liberalism, and the electorates will give up more and more power to the conspirators. Money is all-powerful. Governments are insignificant compared to money. Since governments control the money, that control must be removed from governments and put in the hands of the conspirators. Any and all means to achieve the goal of world domination by the conspirators is justified. The size, scope, and power of the conspirators' resources must remain hidden. Alcohol, drugs, and moral corruption shall be used to weaken the will of the people. Wars should be instigated and orchestrated so that both sides would be in their debt. In other words, the conspirators would gain profit and power no matter who won the wars. Propaganda and control of information should be used to influence opinion. Pre-planned and artificially manipulated financial panics and depressions should be used to tame the people and weaken governments so as to ultimately form one world government with the conspirators as the rulers. Amschel has 5 sons, 4 of whom he sent to the major cities of 4 different major powers of Europe to establish or gain control over the major central banks of each country. Solomon went to Vienna, Austria, Nathan to London, England, Khaled to Naples, Italy, James to Paris, France, while Meyer and Amschel stayed in Frankfurt, Germany. In addition to these major countries of Germany, Austria, England, Italy, and France, the Rothschilds did extensive banking for the governments of Belgium, Spain, Brazil, and many other countries. This was all part of Amschel's plan to gain control over vast wealth and power. By having each of his sons running successful central banks in each country, Amschel could influence the economy and politics of Europe to create economic panics and wars, just as he had planned. Each country's banks, controlled by the Rothschilds, would then finance the wars for the conflicting countries, and as a result, the bankers would profit. And if you study history, you will see that during this period of time, there was perpetual war in Europe for many years, particularly after the Rothschilds came to power. In essence, nearly all the wars in Europe at this time and since have not been fought over political ideology, which was and is merely a disguise, but to increase the wealth and power of the international banking conspiracy through the Rothschild banking dynasty and based on the principles of the Illuminati. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop reading this, and I'm going to leave you to go down into the description section and make a minor contribution to the upkeep of this not only website, but this YouTube channel. And in the thank you, notice that you will receive a link where you can download this PDF file to read for yourself. I thank you very much for listening. I mean, this is 72 pages and I'm on page 10, so 1/7 of it you already have. And this is an absolutely incredible document. And if you didn't know what was in it before, this will enlighten even a dummy. There's a couple of blank pages here. I don't know why. Oh, they just have to refresh. Okay. There is a very chilling aspect to this document in that it outlines everything that has been done and everything that the alternate media has partially exposed. And this will cure the disease of libtardosis. That's what I call it, libtardosis. So, thank you very much for listening. This is Dave from Whirlwind Revolt, Net for Truth USA 2, and Inglorious Patriots saying thank you. God bless you. Godspeed. Autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears will be sent to you for a $100 donation. You can get the book from Amazon or buy it directly from the publisher at LuLu.com. Links are in the description section. Please subscribe to our backup channel, Inglorious Patriots. We fly so close to the target, we're on our third fighter jet. We will be relentless truth seekers until the enemies of freedom are defeated. Links are in the description section.